How about some lighter content today? I want to talk to you about the reason I have this poster in my office. This poster is for the Universe of Energy, an attraction at Epcot, originally Epcot Center, which, I would like to talk about because that attraction is a big reason why my head understands energy the way it does. The Universe of Energy, and specifically the version that replaced it, Ellen's Energy Adventure, is often maligned because it's a weird attraction. For those of you that don't know anything about Epcot, I'm going to highly recommend Defunct Land's amazing video. Video doesn't even describe it well. It is a masterpiece, Journey to Epcot Center. If you want to understand the story of Epcot and why it fascinates me so much, just watch that video. It is so weird that the Disney Corporation was like, we're going to build a theme park, and the theme is going to be international cooperation and innovation. And heck yes. That's so cool. Epcot, unfortunately, has lost a lot of that spirit. World Showcase remains virtually untouched, so the international cooperation part is still very much alive. But the future world is nothing like it used to be. And that makes me sad, but I understand it. But anyway, please, if you have some time to spend, that video is so amazing. When Kevin released it, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a love letter to Epcot, and it's perfect. So please watch that if you want to understand why I have such a soft spot for Epcot. But anyway, I want to talk about the Universe of Energy. It is much maligned these days because, okay. Let me start by talking about the weird way that Epcot even happened. So back in the day, Disney was, and when I'm talking about Disney, I do mean Disney parks. I have never been a huge fan of the Disney Corporation, but Disney parks, back in the day, when they were creating even going back to Disneyland, a lot of their attractions operated on the sponsorship model. Basically, Disney would say, hey, Goodyear, would you like to put your name on this attraction we're building called the People Mover? We'll take some money from you and help build that attraction, and in exchange, you can have your name on it. And Disney doesn't really do that anymore. They kind of do. There's a couple things that hold on, and in fact, one of the original Epcot attractions still has its original sponsor. But in 1982, when Epcot opened, and I'm looking at an older photo of Google Maps here, and you'll understand why. It was basically the titans of American industry that were sponsoring these attractions. So you had the Seas Pavilion, which was sponsored by United Technologies. You had the Land Pavilion, which was sponsored by Kraft General Foods, I'm pretty sure, when it first opened. The Imagination Pavilion, which was sponsored by Kodak. Then you had originally World of Motion over here, which was sponsored by General Motors. This used to be Horizons, rest in peace, which was sponsored by General Electric. This pavilion here was actually shoehorned in the late 80s. It did not open with the park, and it is currently shuttered. Nobody knows what's going on with this. It was the Wonders of Life Pavilion, sponsored by MetLife. And then this right here is the subject of our video, the Universe of Energy. Now, the reason I said it's much maligned is because there are a lot of people who know just enough about Disney and Epcot to know this attraction was sponsored by Exxon. And so they view this as a pro-oil attraction. And I see posts going around, and I even just saw one in searching for some videos where people are like, remember that time that Bill Nye and Ellen DeGeneres made oil industry propaganda for the Disney Corporation? And that is such a dishonest framing of what the attraction actually was. One of the reasons I'm looking at this satellite image from 2014 is because, do you see what's on top of that building there? Those are photovoltaic solar panels, and they were put there in 1982. They were there the whole time. And in fact, supposedly, the energy that these solar panels collected was used to charge the ride vehicles in this ride. And calling this a ride is like really a large part of why I talk about this is because this attraction is just fascinating. The whoever came up with this idea, it was just a fever dream. And I'm going to show you some clips of it, and also really we're just talking about the original attraction experience. This is no longer there. The building is still there. If we zoom ahead to today, the building is still there. I am not sure if they put new panels on or what's going on, but this building is now the queue, and I think the trains actually are loaded and unloaded in here for the Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind attraction, which is quite amazing. I will say it's very, very cool. It bums me out because Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't fit with the original theme of Epcot at all, but they tried to make it work a little bit, and the original theme of Epcot is just Future World especially is just, it's kind of barely together at this point. It saddens me. But anyway, I'll go back to this picture from 2014. I have pulled up, now I'm doing this on my Mac Mini because that's where my microphone is, so forgive me, I'm really not good at using Mac OS. So we're just gonna minimize this window here. This attraction is what was called a traveling theater. And Disney used this kind of again with the Great Movie Ride in Hollywood Studios, back then MGM Studios, but that attraction doesn't exist anymore either. So this is the only version, well, I mean, we're just gonna talk about this one. These things here are what they call, I think they call them the traveling theater cars. I'm not sure if they really had a dedicated name for them, but these are enormous ride vehicles. Each one of these probably seats about 100 people. And when you are waiting to board this attraction, there is a pre-show. So you would come in through here, and there's this pre-show theater, which has 5 screens. And we're going to look at some of this in a bit. Part of what I want to show with this video is the scale. The scale of this attraction was so immense. Like it's really hard to convey how enormous this building was and how enormous the theaters were. And well, let's just watch some clips here. This is the exterior of the building and some of the signage that was originally there. You can see the solar panels up top. This mural here is original to the original Epcot Center, so this was not touched at all. We had this cool display built into the tile work for minutes to the next show. And the way that this would work, there were 2 concurrent shows happening all the time, and this clock, if I remember right, was counting down to when the pre-show started. And the pre-show, let's see if there's a good clip of it here. Oh gosh, there really isn't. So I think this version came out in 1996. If I remember right, it wasn't completely ready for some time, and they ran the old version of the attraction for a brief period of time, even though they had already done a lot of changes to accommodate this new version. But this is the pre-show area. Again, just this one room is enormous, and there are 5 screens. I got off track here. So obviously we're looking at Ellen DeGeneres right now in her very 90s outfit. Oh, there's another one too. But the original version of this attraction, these 5 screens had these tiles, these kinetic tiles that could, I think they were 5x5 grids, and each tile was a triangle and it could spin. So it was either a normal theater surface or a normal screen surface, or it could turn and stick out as a triangle and have this 3-dimensional shape to it, or it could even, I think it had a black surface as well. So the original pre-show, all 5 of these screens were doing this really cool undulation, and I don't know how to describe it. I'm not focused on the original version of this attraction in this video. I am too young to have experienced it. I might have ridden it as a very little kid, but I have no memory of it. The only memory of this attraction I have is Ellen's Energy Adventure. And when they did the reboot for this, they removed the dynamic screen and they turned it into this kind of comedic pre-show. And they were making good use of these 5 screens. Let me just play a little bit here.
Welcome to the universe of energy. How are you? No need to answer. You know, you're probably surprised to see me here, aren't you? But then there's probably a lot of places you'd be surprised to see me when you think about it. If you were driving in your car, for instance, okay? Close your eyes, you're in your car. Don't close your eyes in the car, but right now think about it. You're in your car, you're driving, and then all of a sudden from the back seat I just pop up and go, hey! You just whack me in the head, wouldn't you?
So, they're just doing kind of fun, playful things with jump cuts. And if you can't tell from the audio in the video, the sound is coming from behind each screen. So depending on where she is, you hear in different places. So the conceit of this ride, and again, it's a fever dream. Ellen, and literally it is a dream, Ellen is a huge fan of Jeopardy, and she's watching Jeopardy. Big CRT television in this New York apartment, which is frankly amazing, but who does this? I mean, it's a movie set, of course. And Bill Nye is her friend for some reason. And so here's Bill Nye.
I had the best nickname for her, though.
What was that?
Stupid Judy.
No, and that makes no sense. She has a PhD.
I know, but it made me feel better. So now get...
Judy was played by Jamie Lee Curtis, by the way, and that is, in fact, Alex Trebek. One of the worst things about this attraction is that they filmed it in 1996, and then the Jeopardy set changed dramatically after that. So the ride was like immediately dated, and they never updated the films. So this attraction kept running like this until 2017. It was hilariously dated by the time it closed. But anyway, the conceit is she's watching Jeopardy. Her college roommate is on Jeopardy. She's jealous of that. And then she falls asleep while watching Jeopardy. And so she has a dream sequence. And then we go later into start the dream sequence here.
Dr. Judy Peterson, Dr. Albert Einstein, and finally, just Ellen. And now here is the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek.
Thank you, Johnny Gilbert. Hello, contestants. Welcome to our program, and good luck to you in the game. Here are the categories for the first round of play. Solar energy, wind power, energy from water, fossil fuels, fusion, and finally, gas.
I just want to point out here, the first categories were all renewables, right? So all the people that are like, oh, this is oil industry propaganda, it's like a huge amount of this attraction is talking about renewable energy. We have been talking about this for 30 years. And I'll play some other clips later where when we're talking about fossil sources, they're even saying, like, we only have enough for 50 years. Like this... Again, I don't want to sound like I'm defending the Disney Corporation, but I am defending reality because I don't really like it when people are like, oh, remember that time they made oil propaganda? It's like, yes, the attraction was sponsored by Exxon. It was not saying oil is fantastic. There's freaking solar panels on the roof of the attraction. Anyway, so she's having a dream and she's losing to Judy because Judy knows everything about Jeopardy. And let me just skip forward a little bit here.
Response.
What is hydroelectric? What is helium?
And so, as we come to the end of the first round, ladies and gentlemen, Judy has been commandingly. Ellen has her work cut out for her, and Dr. Einstein is nowhere, relatively speaking.
Is this a nightmare or what?
Oh, Ellen, your first correct response.
Wait a minute.
So, then we kind of get to the end of the pre-show. And again, this is the pre-show. So this attraction was incredibly long. And that's one of the reasons why it's not fondly remembered. I thought it was a great excuse to take a break into some air conditioning from the Florida heat. But it was an incredibly long experience. The pre-show itself is like 7 minutes. And, also this is the kind of fun thing that Disney would do. I just want to point out this clip, hopefully.
It gets really weird from here. Now some person I don't even know reminds me there's no eating, drinking, smoking, or flash photography allowed in my dream.
That's right, there's no eating, drinking, smoking, or flash photography in the dream. Thank you.
They did that the whole time it ran. It was just a charming little thing that they did. And then they did a quick little recap here for those that were just walking in, because you could walk into the pre-show at any time. This attraction had an enormous capacity, as you will soon see. And then the very end, I'm sure I have used this line at one point in my videos.
You're late, and you think about that next time.
And that's how the pre-show ends. So, oops. I did not mean to go full screen. So you can now see when the room lights are back on, there are 2 doors here that you're about to walk through. I have to change clips. This is a pretty good video of the attraction. You can watch the whole thing if you want, but this doesn't really show the ride vehicles. So let me go over here. Okay, so this video actually shows what it's like to walk into the theater.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, just one of the doors in front of you will be opening up. So come on up this way. Just please say behind the go on to fill the door open, and those doors will be opening towards you.
So we're walking into Theater 1, and these are the enormous vehicles I was talking about. These are called the traveling theater cars. Each one, I think they had 10 rows. You could easily fit 10 people on each bench. These are just enormous, enormous vehicles. And one of the things that Disney's really doing here is they're kind of doing a bit of a fake out, because this room looks like there's black curtains, and again, it is going to be impossible to convey the scale of how big everything was here. But we're doing a bit of a fake out because the vehicles are facing the wrong way. It looks like you're facing towards some sort of a presentation and the curtains are going to open up, but what actually happens is, as soon as the ride starts, the doors close.
And now return to Ellen's Energy Adventure.
Here, so you could show me nothing?
And at this time, you discover you're sitting on a turntable, and the entire turntable is turning around.
Must have been a big delivery room, huh?
So I'm going to go back to the blueprint here. So here was the pre-show room. We walked in. That was this enormous room, and it looks like we're facing forward. There's a curtain here. We're going to be looking at some kind of a show. But you're actually sitting on a turntable, and the entire thing turns around, and you discover that behind you the whole time were 3 enormous movie screens. Each one had a 70mm projector, and you were watching just a huge, huge widescreen experience. Now you'll notice this thing here and all that. Well, so what happens is, after this show, after this beginning, and all footage of this is very flickery that you can find because these were film projectors. They never updated it to digital projection, which, of course, they didn't. So these were all 70mm film projectors. And this part of the ride is basically just exploring the Big Bang and the creation of Earth. And then we skip forward to when the dinosaurs are alive.
I was kind of hoping you'd show me a slideshow.
A slideshow? I guess that'd be easier, but this is way more fun.
Yeah, this is fun. Where's the energy?
Oh, it's all around you. See, these plants and animals are soaking up energy from the sun. When they die and get buried, time, pressure, and heat will cook them into the fossil fuels we rely on today, like coal, natural gas, and oil.
So that is the conceit of the fossil fuel part, where we've traveled back in time. We're looking at ancient plant and animal material which turned into fossil fuels. And we explained that. But then what happens is at the end of this sequence, suddenly the turntable starts moving to the left.
Maybe I'll go. What am I so scared of? It's just a dinosaur. What's the big deal about dinosaurs? They're not so tough. It's a little brain the size of a pea. I hope you're not upset about that pea brain crack, because, now that I think of it, I'm sure peas are much larger in this time period. I happen to love peas, don't you? I'll take that as a maybe. I should get going because I'm supposed to be have dinner with friends. So I should go. Hey, what's over there?
Right at this moment, when you hear the footsteps of dinosaurs, the vehicle you are sitting in starts moving forward. And so this is the traveling theater concept. This door, which you had no idea was there because it was behind curtains, has opened up, and we are now moving into the prehistoric diorama. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. Again, if you want to watch the whole thing, there's I'll link these two in the description. There's several different ride-throughs, but some are better than others at conveying the scale. This, by the way, this is an infrared emitter for the cameras. That way the cast members operating the ride can actually keep track of what people are doing. But this is an interesting scene where we're sitting here, and this diorama, I did it again. This diorama slowly has a sunrise effect, and so you see the light get brighter. You can actually, as you're moving in, these just look like silhouettes. You don't realize these are actually enormous animatronic figures of dinosaurs. And I think you'll be able to see, yeah, so those cars over there are moving. Here's the car in front of you moving away. And now the car that the person is filming from is moving forward as well. So if we go back to that, to this schematic here, when you boarded, all of the ride vehicles were facing here. Then that was the first fake out. So you turn around and then you watch about 7 minutes of film on these enormous screens. Then you turn and point that direction. As a group, all 6 vehicles move into this section and then stop. And the sunrise scene is happening. Now you'll notice there's another theater over here. We'll get back to that. But after they've stopped here and the door behind you closes, these 2 vehicles start moving forward. Then these 2 vehicles start moving forward. And then these 2 vehicles start moving forward. So suddenly we go from a group of 6 in a 3x2 configuration to 6 individual theater cars all following each other through the diorama scene. And if you saw that Ellen DeGeneres had an animatronic figure made of her, it was about right here. It was right near the end of this section before you move into Theater 2. Now, you'll see the part of what fascinates me about this attraction is that there were 2 shows concurrently all of the time. So when these 6 vehicles moved into here and stopped, and this door shut, the 6 vehicles in Theater 2 were about to move back into Theater 1. And so the turntable, it probably needed to turn a little bit to align. And by the way, you can see in the ride what looks like a track. It's not really a track. The vehicles are following a guide wire, and those are just metal plates, so the wheels have better traction. I read a story that originally, I don't know if this is true, but originally the ride vehicles were moving directly on carpet. These were trackless ride vehicles in 1982, and the vehicles were moving along carpet, but they were having problems with static discharge, and that was resetting the computers that actually drove the ride vehicles. I don't know if that's true or not, but you'll see these plates. You can see them right here. These are really just a dedicated surface for the wheels of these things to travel on without digging into the flooring. But that's what's happening here, is these ride vehicles are all moving forward, progressing through the diorama scene. All of this stuff is original from 1982. It wasn't, I think the colors were updated, like the dinosaurs were made more vibrant. But mostly this is original. Does this have the Ellen figure in it? I'm gonna guess no. They've removed that figure towards the end of the attractions. The audio of her voice is playing in this, but I think the figure is gone. Fun fact, when I was, one of the times I went on this attraction, when I was maybe 12 or 14, one of the hands of the Ellen figure had fallen off. That was a bit disturbing. But anyway, so as we are approaching the end of the diorama scene, the vehicles are moving into Theater 2. There's some flashing lights here. We're going underneath a tunnel. And they are now reassembling themselves. The turntable is shown the wrong way in this drawing, but they are now reassembling themselves in the same original configuration. Although this drawing is a little incorrect because in Theater 2, they did not have the platforms to get on and over here. They did not have the platforms to get on and off of the ride vehicles that they do in Theater 1. So the ride vehicles are actually closer together in Theater 2. Small issue with this drawing, but anyway, we're moving back into Theater 2, and we're going back into this original formation.
Let's get a move on. There's some way cool stuff just ahead.
Because it takes so much time for these vehicles to reconfigure, before the film in Theater 2 starts, there's a cute radio bit going on from KNRG. And KNRG, they're doing news reports over the years from like 900,000 BC. This is one of those things where it would depend on which vehicle you boarded. When I was little, we would try to be in this vehicle here because this would be the first one to leave, and that meant it was the first one to enter Theater 2. And you got to hear the entire KNRG radio bit. If you were this vehicle here, you would enter Theater 2 last, and you wouldn't hear much of that at all.
Mammals are getting hairier. That's right. Woolly is definitely in, whether you're a mammoth or a rhino. And saber teeth seem to be a growing fad in the cat world. Also, look for antlers to be very big this year. As big as 10 feet on creatures like the megalosaurus. Wow! And that's the latest in the fashion world.
That is the end of it's essentially the end of the radio bit. If I remember right, that is when the last vehicles have stopped, and now this turntable starts moving to reposition you to face the screens, which are... yeah, they're directly in front. They're here. So these are where the screens are in Theater 2, and that will be obvious at the end of the ride.
Is it ever going to warm up? Let's find out with a look at the weather. Willard?
You know those giant glaciers?
Oh, and by the way, if you're the kind of weird, kind of on the spectrum nerd that I am, you would notice at this point, after the vehicles stop, they start humming because they're being charged. The AC power is being fed to the vehicles when they're stopped on the charging paddles to charge them up because they're big electric vehicles with probably a ton of lead acid batteries in them. And at this point, you could actually hear and feel, more just feel, a kind of like click and then the humming of 60 hertz when the vehicles are being charged.
Glaciers we've all gotten so used to, well, they're going to be receding to the north and south poles. Conditions are looking very favorable for a whole new kind of mammal. KNRG News Time, 750,000 BC.
So again, we're in the pitch dark. You can't really tell what's happening, but the turntable is moving.
And that's our KNRG up-to-the-minute news report. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. Now we're exactly where we need to be.
Quick note, the entire time I remember this attraction, the audio in Theater 2 was significantly tinnier and worse than in Theater 1. I have no idea why. I suspect it's because of soundproofing concerns. I'll throw it up. There's actually a time when, I'll have to find this footage, but there was a time when, it was in 2007, if I remember right, where we were there and I had a camcorder and we were actually in a breakdown on this ride. / attraction, whatever you call this. And the turntable in Theater 1, after we had come to the end of the ride, did not, it broke. So we were just kind of, it didn't move. So something happened and the coordination got thrown off. So they turned on the work lights and I could actually see the door that separates Theater 1 and 2, and it comes out of the floor. It was very much a surprise to me. But there's a huge door that comes out of the floor which separates Theater 1 and 2. It's right. Presumably there's two of them, but what I'm talking about is right here. There's an enormous door that moves. But this is all gone. But on both sides, there were these enormous doors. And I've always kind of thought that probably because the speakers for this screen were right behind that door, maybe if they had the audio a little too boomy, you could hear it in Theater 1. I don't know. But regardless, Theater 2, the audio is always worse. And they do a quick rundown of the discovery of fire. Fun fact, that's Michael Richards. Weird cameo that he has in here. Very playful. This is also another fake out they did where there are actually two screens just as big as this one on either side.
From now on, we're dreaming wide screen. Wider. Wider. I sound like a dentist, don't I? Okay, everybody, rinse and spin. Yes, kidding, not you, sir. Thank you.
And by the way, I'm playing this part in its entirety on purpose because there's some notable things about this.
We'll start with the sun. It's where most of our energy comes from. And it's at the heart of some bright ideas for tomorrow.
Like what, Bill Nye the Science Guy?
Like solar energy. Solar mirrors are one way to convert the sun's energy into electricity.
Now, quick note, this is not a photovoltaic array. These are concentrated solar, is that what it's called? Where these mirrors are directing the sun's energy up to a tower, and then that tower is getting extremely hot. I think it's usually melting salt, and then that hot salt is generating electricity via a turbine. These still exist. They're in the deserts of California. It was cheaper to do before photovoltaics, but now that photovoltaics exist, these aren't really happening anymore.
Cool. I mean, hot. I mean, coolly hot. Or hotly cool. So why don't we just make everything solar?
Not so fast.
Now, a big thing about this attraction, and a big message that they were saying the whole time was, all of these sources of energies have pros and cons, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be using them. There's a line here which, 30 years into the future is now true.
For one thing, it's not sunny enough everywhere. And although the sunshine is free, solar electricity still isn't that cheap. But it's getting there.
That was the line. Solar electricity isn't that cheap, but it's getting there. It got there. Look at that, progress. Then we have a diversion into wind.
Well, then why don't we just get a bunch of wind farmers to harvest a big old crop of wind?
We're starting to, where it's windy. But remember, to power a whole city, you need a whole lot of windmills.
And when the wind stops blowing, we'd be left in the dark, wouldn't we?
No way, we just switch to another source of energy.
Then we talk about hydroelectric power and the consequences of that.
Water into electricity. And our
Let's see.
I'm guessing this big red rock isn't going to give us energy when we need it.
No, but this big gray wall might. It's clean and efficient.
I know this one. Come on, quiz me.
Okay. Hydroelectric power plants convert the energy of falling water into electricity and are renewed by this natural resource.
What is rain?
Correct.
So it talks about the fact that building a dam is very hard on ecosystems. We've already had most of the best sites have been built. So we can't just build dams everywhere. Like the whole ride is basically teaching everyone about all the different sources of energy we use and all their pros and cons. And here's the thing, right?
Now, these renewables provide about 10% of the world's energy, but we can expect them to be playing an even bigger role in the decades ahead.
So again, that's why I'm like, was this really just oil industry propaganda? Because I don't really think it was. But now we do talk about fossil fuels.
That's great, Bill, but we still need a heck of a lot more energy. Where's it coming from? And do you have a curling iron?
Come on, I'll show you. Let's hitch a ride with the solid fossil fuel.
Oh, I know this one. What is coal?
Correct. And we've discovered 2 centuries worth.
Whoa. What about global warming?
It's a hot topic with lots of questions. But it's one of the big reasons scientists are working on ways to burn fuels like coal more efficiently than ever.
That is the worst thing about this ride that aged quite poorly. That is the only mention of climate change. And of course, it's called global warming because back in 1996, we were calling it global warming. But then we discovered far too many people simply cannot understand that it's the average global temperature which is going up, and that doesn't mean cold weather doesn't happen. That's why we started calling it climate change. But that's the worst thing about this attraction is that it's like, what about global warming? It's a hot topic with lots of questions. That's the only mention of it. But it is important that they acknowledge that's one of the reasons we're trying to use fossil fuels more efficiently. There's a diversion on natural gas. It talks about how many years of gas we have left.
More than 4. You mean natural gas?
It's clean burning. At the rate we're going, we're set for about 60 years.
So again, I'm just pointing out that like this attraction kept saying with all these fossil fuels, there is a time where they're going to run out. They were not hiding that.
Use it wisely. So, Ellen, how...
What is black gold, Texas tea, swimming pools, movie stars? What is the Beverly Hillbillies? I mean, what is oil?
Right. It's our main source of energy, and we found enough to last at least 50 years.
That's all?
We're far from running on empty. We've got some pretty far-out ways of finding more.
This is the part of the attraction I'm like, okay, this is the closest I'll call it to oil industry propaganda, because they basically just like, oh, we could use satellites to find more oil. So yeah, I'm just gonna skip this part. It's a bit silly. Then we talk about offshore drilling platforms and the fact that how big they are. And then we go to nuclear power.
Where are we now?
The world of atomic power. See, today we take atoms like these and split them apart to release energy. It's called fission. Hold on! Nuclear energy is expensive and highly controversial.
So I guess there's never going to be just one answer.
But if we keep using our brain power, we'll have lots of choices for the future. Maybe even unlock the power of the stars. Fusion power.
I'm beginning to see the light.
Actually, I think it's double jeopardy, Ellen.
Okay, so now we're at basically the finale of the ride, and this is where we have the last fake out. So we are back into Jeopardy. Let me just move forward here.
All right, players, we're ready to begin the second round.
And the operator, the filmer, props to whoever filmed this. There's not many views on this version, but this is probably the best one. Did a good job of conveying just how enormous this room is. This is such an enormous room that you're sitting in, and these screens are filling the entire... This is just so impressive. Anyway.
And Ellen, would you start us off by making a selection, please?
I sure will, Alex. I will take dinosaurs for 800.
Ellen, you do know that the more expensive the question, the harder it is.
Oh, no, I didn't. Let me rethink that then. Dinosaurs for 1,000, Alex.
Okay, the answer is, this is when scientists believe dinosaurs first appeared on the Earth. Ellen.
What is 220 million years ago, give or take a day?
You're absolutely right.
What is the sun? What is hydrogen, Alex? What are photovoltaics?
Just wanted to call that out. What are photovoltaics? You cannot see the left screen is the blue classic Jeopardy with the actual clue, but this version doesn't show that.
What is fire? Which, by the way, is what sparked the progress of human civilization. Alex, I don't know if you knew that or not.
Correct again. And amazingly enough, at the end of this double Jeopardy round, you have managed to come from way behind to tie Judy for the lead.
Okay, so I'm just going to skip forward to where I move back into Theater 2, and what happens is this screen, the bottom of it lifts up. It's actually all the screens. So now you're moving forward into Theater 1, back where you started. Oh, that's really flickery. I'm going to skip forward to, there is one more fake out here, which is there actually was a screen where you thought you were going to be starting.
Judy, we'll start with you. You wrote down nothing.
That's correct, Alex, because there is no answer.
Well, actually, you're wrong. Let's take a look at your wager. Oh, that's too bad. You risked everything you had, and that means you lose $17,800, and you wind up with nothing. Let's go down to Ellen now and see what she came up with as a response to our final Jeopardy clue. Ellen?
What is brain power, Alex?
You are correct. And your wager? You too risked everything, but you doubled your score to $35,600, and that makes you, Ellen, our new Jeopardy champion. Congratulations.
All right, so that's basically the end of the ride. I am going to point out the original version of the attraction, and this is something that I really wish I could have seen. This section of the ride was amazing because behind all these curtains were originally mirrors, and there was this really cool laser. There wasn't really a laser light show, but they had a very line drawing, very colorful line drawings on black film being shown both on the three screens behind you and this screen here. And because all the walls were mirrors, it was like you're moving into this space that's just surrounded by energy. And it had an amazing song. I know I cannot play that because of copyright, but I would really highly recommend looking for some of the original clips of the, you know what, here, hold on. I'm going to just show you a little bit of it. Okay, Martin Smith, he does wonderful videos of the different Disney attractions. They're so, basically he's like a documentarian of them. So I'm going to go ahead and use some clips from him. This is great if you want to see the original version of the ride, but none of the quality is very good because it's all, camcorders from the 90s and earlier. But this is what was originally in Theater 2. You see the space shuttle launch. As the shuttle launches, the bottom of the screen lifts up. And this is when you would start moving back into Theater 1. And this is what it looked like in there. That's all I'll play because I don't want to get demonetized. But the whole room was covered in mirror. I thought I was going to. You can see the curtains coming back down. All the walls were mirrors. So you'd come into here. It's just like you're surrounded by laser light. It's so cool. The song's really catchy. Ah, man. As dry as original Epcot was, I do wish I had seen this version because the end is just freaking amazing. So yeah, I really just wanted to show you, right? Let me go back to the other window. Jeez, I'm such a freaking noob for macOS. Okay, so again, the original building, and I'm trying to say it's so hard to get a sense of the scale. This whole thing was just for that attraction. Spaceship Earth, which is already enormous, is not, it's obviously a lot taller, but the circumference of Spaceship Earth has got nothing on this building's footprint. This building was just gigantic. And so this was just such a cool concept. The traveling theater, having you be able to see both the show and actually go through the primeval diorama it's just really cool. And I hope you see, honestly, a big part of why I make the videos I do is because of the inspiration from Epcot, and that you can make learning about things entertaining, but you have to, you kind of just got to kind of trick people into learning stuff. And the universe of energy, the later, like, it really does show when Epcot was really learning how to become an edutainment place. And, I would say the Wonders of Life is kind of where that started. The Wonders of Life was the first project that moved Epcot away from its very dry beginnings. And then also Spaceship Earth. I'm going to put a link to the Martin's vids. I actually have a comment on there because the Jeremy Irons version of Spaceship Earth, which was originally sponsored by, originally by Bell System and then AT&T. And it tells the story of human communication. So anyway, that's another great, it really shows how Epcot started to move away from its very dry roots to something a little more playful and fun. But of course now there's very little of original Epcot that's left. There's Living with the Land, which is basically exactly the same. Living with the Land, the only thing that has changed is the very beginning section got a few tweaks, and the narration on the boats is now automated, where it used to be a cast member was actually riding the boat with you. But Living with the Land is still here. All these greenhouses, your boat travels through these greenhouses. You get to see all of them. And again, this, like the land, it's what the line is. It's called Living with the Land because it's about environmental stewardship. So at the end, it's like only then will we truly be living with the land. It's kind of just like Epcot is basically, it was basically like, what if we made hope into a theme park and knowledge into a theme park? And it's still there. It is still a monument to the original spirit of the park, but now so much has changed. Let's go to the newest photo. So this was originally the Communicore. This is the dumbest thing Disney ever did. It was the Communicore originally, then it became Innoventions, and there was always Innoventions East and Innoventions West. And by the way, I should have pointed this out. If we go back to 2014, the reason why Innoventions East has this bump out is because this is the exit to the Universe of Energy. So when the ride was over, you would walk behind you, and then rather than go through the doors you came in, which were like here, there were doors over here. You'd walk through a hallway and then come out here. And if you walked directly across, then there was an energy exhibit inside of the Communicore. And that's what this was. So the Communicore East had this weird bump out specifically for the Universe of Energy. But now they decided to tear down Communicore West, and then they realized, oh, that was a mistake. So they rebuilt half of it. It's so sad. And the Fountain of Nations is gone. This, going back to 2014, this was a animated fountain, kind of like the Bellagio in Las Vegas. And it would do shows every 15 minutes, maybe it was every half hour. And one of the really cool things when Epcot opened, because again, it was open in the spirit of international cooperation, there were diplomats from all different countries that brought vials of water from the rivers of those countries and added them to this fountain. And it's such a cool symbolic thing. And now it's gone. So it's just like, I don't know what the heck Disney's been thinking with what they're doing with Epcot. It does need to be modernized quite a lot because I read something that I hadn't really thought of it this way, but like the aesthetic of Epcot, of Future World anyway, was very much like a corporate office park of the early 80s, like a very modern looking corporate office park of the early 80s. And that's an aesthetic that I love a lot, but it aged quite poorly. And the only things, I'm just trying to think of like what, Test Track hasn't aged poorly because literally the building is just a giant wheel. But the land has aged okay, but so much of Epcot is just, it started to get dated really bad. So the renovations they did on now Communicore, or what are they calling this now? Because this is the gift shop and the restaurant, which is called it's got connections in the name, which I find very funny. What is it called again? You can tell I'm really keeping up with what they're doing these days. God, what is the name of the cafe? Connections Eatery, I think, is what it's called. That's in here now. Same with the little tiny mini World of Coke they have, which always get your friends to try the Beverly. Tell them it's amazing. But yeah, it's not even called Future World anymore. It's World Celebration, World Nature, and World Discovery. It's broken up into 3, and I couldn't even really... I'm sure this is World Nature. And that kind of makes sense because they have the Seas Pavilion and Journey. The sea is the land and the Moana thing, which is kind of cool. So this is like World Nature. And then you have World Discovery, which I think is this side, which is more like the science side. Mission Space, by the way, terrible ride. It's not good. I don't know why they keep... It's technologically interesting because it's a centrifuge. It's a combination motion simulator and centrifuge, but it's not very good. It's not very good. They could totally put something else there, and they should. It was sponsored by HP. This is one of the... They actually did get a sponsor for it back in, I think, 2004 is when it opened. But yeah, I'm just kind of rambling. But World Showcase, this basically is all original. So all of the country pavilions are still there. The only weird thing they did was they made the Norway boat ride into an Frozen themed thing, which, I mean, fine. Although that was such a weird... I was working my college program when that opened. Or maybe when it... Oh, no, it closed. It closed as Maelstrom. So I got to ride Maelstrom on my college program before it closed. And the fact that they turned that ride into a Frozen ride is so weird because the capacity of Maelstrom was terrible. The boats only hold like 12 people, and they don't get dispatched that frequently. So they were like, let's take our most popular property we've come out with since The Lion King and cram it into a ride that does not have a meaningful capacity at all. So the queues for that were just horrendous, and they still are. It's a fun attraction, but like it's not for me. It's for little kids mainly. I really wish they'd built some more attractions in World Showcase, and you can see they still have, when they opened the park, it only had 9, and then the Norway Pavilion opened later, as well as the Morocco Pavilion. Those were 2. Morocco's over here, I think. Yeah, those 2 were added later. And they still have plots of land to add more pavilions. There could be one here. There could be one here. There could be a huge one here. But, they just haven't done it. The biggest thing they did was they did the Remy's Ratatouille Adventure expansion behind the France Pavilion. This is a fun ride. But, it's a floorless theater. Actually, in some ways, it's kind of like a spiritual successor to the Universe of Energy. It's just a lot more fast-paced and much more physical sets combined with screens rather than just 2 theaters and then the screens. But anyway, just wanted to make this quick video about the Universe of Energy. And I really hope, well, I'm going to post this even if it gets demonetized because I really want to show that, like, I'm the way that I am because back in 1996, Disney, of all of all corporations, put together this amazing attraction, which was basically just trying to get you to think about energy and all the different sources of energy and all the different options we have. And it was a really cool attraction. And I miss it, but I understand why it's gone. What they really needed to do, they needed to update the films in like 2007. I've been rambling for a long time, but one of the tragedies of Epcot is that every single time they have decided we're going to put more money into it, some world calamity happens. So like the Millennium Celebration is when it was really coming into its own. And I remember the Millennium Celebration dearly. It was so, so fun, so hopeful, just, it was so nice. And then 9/11 happened. And tourism just cratered and there was no money left to put into Epcot. And then, tourism's recovering. We're going to start putting more money into Epcot. And then the Great Recession happens. And then Epcot just withers on the vine even more. So that, like, Exxon, they only sponsored this pavilion for like 10 years. And then in 2006, something like that. It no longer had a sponsor. And at Epcot, that's basically just like, well, we'll keep running the ride until it's so old nobody cares. And that's what they did with Ellen's Energy Adventure. In 2006, they really should have redone the films. They could have kept the attraction, but they kept running it exactly like that until 2017. And then, of course, they announced a whole bunch of new investment into Epcot right before COVID. So it's basically just been like this poor park, this poor misunderstood park that Disney built because of a promise that Walt Disney himself made about building the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And they just never have figured out what they need to do with it. So it's still a very special place to me. And, you know, it's always going to have a special place in my heart. And I still visit from time to time. But it is almost kind of sad at this point when I visit Epcot and I see like so much of its original spirit is just gone. It's hardly left. World Showcase is still a lot of fun. And if you want to experience a lot of different international cuisines without having to travel internationally, it's really fun. It's going to be expensive because it's Disney. Everything's expensive, but it's a very cool curated experience. And by the way, you know, when I mentioned the college program, there's an international college program, and most of the cast members that work in these pavilions are from the countries of those pavilions, which is a cool thing they've always been doing since the beginning. So when you visit the Japan pavilion, the people working there are from Japan. When you visit the Germany pavilion, they're from Germany. It's very cool. I do wonder how they're doing getting recruits these days, but regardless. I've been talking long enough. Oh, and I meant to point out, yeah, there aren't any solar panels on the Universe of Energy anymore, but they've built a solar farm over here, and of course it's Mickey shaped. Of course it's Mickey shaped. There are more though. Where there's a much larger one now. I don't remember offhand where it is. I thought it was by Animal Kingdom. No, where is it? Well, this isn't what I was talking about, but there's more photovoltaics over here. There's another one on Disney property that's a lot bigger than that Mickey one. I thought it was by Epcot. Oh, fun fact. This Lake Bryan and Little Lake Bryan, this is where college program housing used to be, this Mickey's Retreat. As far as I know, Disney still owns this, but this Chatham Square, this is where I lived when I did my college program. This up here is the Commons, and that's where most of the international CPs lived. And Patterson Court is one of these two. I have the labels off, which was a third one. And then the original CP housing was Vista Way, which was right off of I-4. Yeah, down here. This was the original CP housing. Disney doesn't use any of this anymore. These are now just rental apartments. They built new housing somewhere by Animal Kingdom. I don't know the details of that, but yeah, if any of you were wondering, CPs used to live over here, mostly around this Little Lake Bryan, and then the rest were at Vista Way down here. And now they're at it's like Flamingo Crossing or something. It's over here by Animal Kingdom somewhere. But I'm still looking for that solar farm. Is it by Magic Kingdom? I'm not just seeing this thing. I thought I saw a bigger solar farm. Well, regardless, there's a lot of land at Disney's property that they will never develop because they need it for, frankly, they just need it for infrastructure and water retention. But a lot of it is protected as well. So they're always, people are always talking about, will they ever build a fifth park? And the answer is probably not. But anywho, hope you enjoyed this little video into the Universe of Energy. I will always have a soft spot for that attraction. And, I'm glad Epcot still exists. I'm glad they're still doing something with it. But man, it could be so much more than it is. And again, please do, if you don't know anything about Epcot and you want to understand why it fascinates me so much, watch that video from Defunct Land. It's so good. It's so good. Man, Kevin, if you watch this, just thank you so much for that video. It's tremendous. Okay, bye.